Hello, my name is Julie Cunningham. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service Weather Forecast Office here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm here today to give you an update on Utah's snowpack and water outlook as we start to pivot from winter and into snowmelt season. So let's dive in. First, let's take a look at where we've been precipitation wise this year. So, here's a look at October, November, and December. This shows precipitation across the state, where red or those warmer colors represent below normal precipitation, and cooler colors represent above normal precipitation. So, as we can see, October and November started off with central Utah doing fairly well, with far northern and far southern Utah each receiving kind of below normal precipitation. But as we head into December, we can see the northern stream really got active after a long period of high pressure to start December. Once we hit around the holidays, we kind of saw that northern stream start to get more active, thus resulting in kind of near normal precipitation across northern Utah, with southern Utah really struggling. Moving into the new year, we saw a really dry start to the year, as you can see by kind of these deep red colors to pink colors, really across the state. However, as we moved into February, we saw that northern stream get fairly active once again, with those cooler colors across the north. And finally, our March has been off to a pretty good start so far this year. We're looking at above normal precipitation across the north and kind of a mix of both across much of the southern portion of the state. So, overall, we kind of saw so far this water year a pretty stark difference between roughly the northern two thirds of Utah versus the southern third. So, we saw roughly above normal, or sorry, near normal precipitation across the northern two thirds of Utah, whereas southern Utah has really struggled to get that snowpack going, really much at all. If we kind of zoom out to the western US as a whole and look at temperature anomalies on the left and then precipitation anomalies on the right, if we start by looking at the right, we can see the desert southwest really struggled this year, with southern Utah kind of on that northern periphery, whereas that northern stream was really active, bringing kind of above normal precipitation to much of the northwestern US. And this is kind of what we often see with these La Nina patterns. We see more active northern stream and pretty dry conditions across the south. So, again, fairly active for, or fairly typical for an average La Nina pattern. Then moving on to snowpack as a whole. So this left image here kind of shows the SWE or snow water equivalent, or another word for snowpack, for 2025, and then how that compares to other years on record. So we started off pretty good in November, with a fairly active pattern. And then after kind of a drier start to December, around the holidays, we really started to ramp up, as shown in that second orange circle. And then we were a little slow going throughout February, but once we hit March, again, we saw that active pattern really start to ramp up again. And that brought us to just about or just above median snowpack for this time of year across the state. Again, this is kind of an average for the whole state. Of course, we can see on the right here that northern Utah is doing quite a bit better than southern Utah. So on the right there, we see the green colors represents roughly normal to just above normal snowpack, whereas the red colors represent well below normal snowpack. Another way to look at this is our current snow depth. So here's modeled snow depth across the state. You can see a lot more snow across the northern mountains, where if you really focus in on the area near Cedar City and St. George, those mountains are really struggling, especially in the Pine Valleys just north of St. George. And if we want to compare this to, say, our record breaking season in 22-23, we can see we're doing quite a bit less than that season. However, again, that was a record-breaking season. You know, we're unlikely to get a season that good for at least a while. I would assume. Moving into better news, as opposed to comparing ourselves to one of the best winters in a while, our reservoirs are doing really well for this time of year. This image here on the left shows our reservoir capacity um, over the past 12 months, as shown by the green line for the current year. You can also compare it to the previous year, which is that purple line, and then also compare it to the median over the past 40 years or so. As you can see, we're well above capacity, our median capacity, roughly 20% above. So we're still doing really well across the state. Even across southern Utah, you can see by the image on the right there, where the blue shading is a pretty high reservoir capacity. So overall, we are doing really well statewide in terms of reservoir storage. However, if we take a look at soil moisture across the state, this was mentioned in our last video, but I'll just quickly review it here. That image on the left shows our soil moisture compared to average for this fall, so that warm shading represents below normal soil moisture. If we compare that to the center image, which is a year prior, so fall 2023, we were in a much better spot, but with our such a warm and dry fall, with the record heat that we saw across the state, that really decreased our soil moistures. And then finally, that image on the right shows the difference between 2024 and 2023. So again, you can see that decrease in soil moisture. Looking at our drought conditions across the West, this decreased soil moisture, as well as combined with that really low snowpack across southern Utah, has increased our drought conditions really statewide, but especially across southwestern Utah. You can see in that portion of Iron County and also Washington County, that red shading means that that area is in D3 or extreme drought, unfortunately. And moving forward, unfortunately, the drought conditions are not expected to improve across the state. That brown shading shows that drought persists, and that yellow shading represents drought development likely. So, in terms of drought conditions, we're not really expecting any sort of improvement moving forward, at least for the next few months or so. However, let's take a look at our weather conditions and what we can expect kind of in the short term starting off. So, looking at the forecast for the next 7 days, we have our active pattern returning this week with a really quick moving cold storm system bringing heavy mountain snow and even some minor valley snow accumulations between late Wednesday and Friday this week. Um, we are in luck where that active pattern will continue into this weekend and even into next week, with potentially another cold storm system arriving in kind of the Monday, Tuesday timeframe. Looking ahead further out, this is looking at the Climate Prediction Center temperature and precipitation outlook for the month of March. We can see we have roughly equal chances of below or above normal temperatures. However, looking at the right hand side, that green shading represents leaning towards above normal precipitation, at least for farther northern Utah. Expanding that further, if we look at the seasonal outlook for March, April, and May, we are expecting pretty much warm and dry conditions heading into, especially into April, and really the rest of the spring. You can see that red shading on the left-hand side represents above normal temperatures, whereas the kind of brown shading on the right-hand side represents below normal precipitation moving forward. So, to summarize, we really just wanted to highlight kind of a few key takeaways here. So, number one being that really large difference in snowpack between northern Utah versus southern Utah, where southern Utah is really struggling to reach even half of our median snowpack. Second, the warm and dry fall resulted in decreased soil moisture statewide, and that is expected to produce poorer runoff efficiency this spring, basically meaning that the soils will absorb some of that snowmelt rather than going into reservoirs. Luckily, our reservoirs are still sitting at 20% above median capacity statewide, so that's a bit of a silver lining there. Across southern Utah in particular, this low snowpack combined with low soil moisture is likely to result in increasing drought conditions moving forward. However, weather-wise forecasts for an active March will help to improve some of our snowpack really before runoff season really gets well underway. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or want to reach out, feel free to reach out to myself, Hayden Mahan, or Glenn Merrill. You can reach us at our office account at nws.saltlakecity@noaa.gov, or feel free to give us a call at 801-524-5133. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good one.